Name is Ronald G. Wayne. I imagine I'm most known by most people as a co-founder of the Apple Computer Company.
Hey, great to see you on our channel once again. As we know, making a mistake might cost you a big fortune, and this is something hard to digest once you realize it. So here are the 5 most expensive mistakes of all time. Before we start the list, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos. Let's start with number 5. Kurt Russell wrecks a priceless guitar.
Time's over. Turn around.
Kurt Russell began acting at the age of 12 and became a successful leading man, working his way to legendary status, best known for his action dramas like 1993 Supreme Western movie Tombstone and well-made science fiction films like Stargate and 1998 Soldier. As we know, actors and actresses need to portray their role at their best. However, sometimes it's a little bit risky if you go too far. And this is what happened to Mr. Kurt Russell. It turns out Kurt Russell let his role take over his personality when portraying a cagey bounty hunter in Quentin Tarantino's phenomenal movie, The Hateful Eight. Being too hateful made the actor responsible for destroying a 145-year-old guitar while filming the movie, and that was surely not the plan. According to SSN Insider, a shocked look of horror on Jennifer Jason Leigh's face was not because of the acting, but because the instrument Russell destroyed was an artifact museum piece, and not one of the prop replicas which was going to be swapped back in. The guitar, which Leigh's character plays in one scene until it's snatched by Russell, was smashed against a pillar. It was an exceptional one-of-a-kind Martin guitar from the 1870s that was on loan from the Martin Guitar Museum. As stated by Dick Boak, the director of the museum and special projects for C.F. Martin & Company, the film production didn't exactly fess up how the guitar was destroyed. However, in fairness, Russell didn't know he was handling an important relic during the execution of the scene. The vintage acoustic instrument was worth approximately $40,000, not to mention the historical value of it. Although insurance money was received for the incalculable Martin guitar, it's not about the money, Dick Boak told Reverb magazine. It's all about American musical history and heritage. And now the Martin Guitar Museum has promised to never let the film industry loan a guitar again. At number 4. Apple's third founder's simple-minded decision.
The Apple Computer Company. 12 days later, I had my name taken off the contract.
In the electronic industry, businesses are always at tables of high-stake competition. Innovation and evolution are the 2 elements for a tech company to be in strategic alignments for domination. And here the big guys are challenged to make huge decisions to pivot their company in the most powerful money-making positions for worldwide production and distribution. Ronald Wayne was the 3rd original partner of Apple, but you won't know too much about him due to his dubious decision to sell his shares prematurely. Apple founder and former CEO Steve Jobs, together with his co-founder Steve Wozniak, became admired names as their Apple company skyrocketed to fame. They might have had to share their success with a 3rd founder, Ron Wayne, if Ron did not sell his equity in 1976. Created by Jobs, Wayne cashed out his 10% share of Apple for $800 early in the company's history. If he had held out until 2013, that same equity would have been worth $35 billion. Ouch, what a loss. Actually, the main reason Ron Wayne joined the team was to provide an experienced hand in the supervision for the Apple company. At that time, Steve Jobs was 21 and his partner Wozniak was 25. Ron Wayne, who was born in 1936, was also tasked with monitoring all aspects, engineering, and production in exchange for a 10% stake in the business, according to CNBC's The Filthy Rich Guide. Based on the statement given by Ron Wayne in Business Insider, Jobs had taken out a $15,000 loan so he could buy supplies to fulfill Apple's first contract with a Bay Area computer store, The Byte Shop, which had ordered around 100 computers. Wayne rapidly grew his uneasiness that any debts incurred by the business would fall on him personally, and he knew both Wozniak and Jobs were young and broke while he had assets. Therefore, after spending a mere 12 days with Wozniak and Jobs, Wayne had his name taken off from the contract and sold his shares back to his co-founders for $800. Owning 10% of Apple right now sounds like a dream, but one man actually knows what it's like to watch that opportunity slip away: Ronald Wayne, the little-known 3rd co-founder of Apple. Now in the number 3 spot, the BP oil spill on the Deepwater Horizon.
Square miles of the Gulf of Mexico, and it could start reaching the United States coast within hours.
The BP stands for British Petroleum, which is a multinational oil and gas company headquartered in London, UK. However, it is the same company responsible for one of the biggest disasters which ruined a massive area of marine biodiversity. It was an industrial disaster that began on April 20th, 2010, and is regarded as one of the largest environmental disasters in US history. The cause of the discharge was an explosion on British Petroleum's Deepwater Horizon oil drilling rig in the Gulf of Mexico. That explosion ended with 11 deaths and the release of millions of barrels of crude oil into the Gulf over 87 days. The well was capped on July 15, 2010, but the damage had been done already. Due to the months-long spill, along with the adverse effects from the response and cleanup activities, extensive damage to marine and wildlife habitats and fishing and tourism industries was reported. And the largest marine oil spill in the history of the petroleum industry history was estimated to be 8% to 31% larger in volume than the previous largest oil spill, the Ixtoc 1 oil spill, which also occurred in the Gulf of Mexico. So what was the negligence that caused the squandered BP oil spill on Deepwater Horizon? Well, in 2011, government investigations listed the following imprudent actions to their official list. Firstly, the cement on the borehole was defective. Next, valves, gas alarms, and the backup batter systems all failed. Pressure tests were misinterpreted and therefore flawed, and there was a clear sign of insufficient management and industry oversight. Due to the irresponsible cost-cutting measures taken by the BP, it ended up costing $60.9 billion and remains the biggest oil spill of its kind. This disaster at Deepwater Horizon was a financial crisis on a scale that has rarely been seen. The U.S. Department of Justice charged BP with 14 counts of felony, where BP pled guilty and paid fines of more than $4 billion until finally settling the case in 2012. Those fines, plus payments to settle various civil claims, cost BP more than $40 billion. Plus, it led to significant pressure on the company for the negative publicity that they received. Down to number 2. Chernobyl reactor disaster.
It was decided at Chernobyl to take advantage of reactor number 4's downtime by carrying out a safety test on an emergency core cooling feature.
Standard operating procedure and well-trained members of workforces are essentially needed for the operations of industrial energy facilities. Unfortunately, these were the shortfalls of the Vladimir Ilyich Lenin nuclear power plant, also commonly known as Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The disaster has been estimated to cost some $235 billion in economic damages, not to mention the long-term environmental impacts and health effects within and beyond the range of its territory. And what made the historical disaster event happen? Well, there were many investigations conducted by different groups, both from governments and private sectors. On April 25, 1986, routine maintenance was scheduled at the nuclear power station's 4th reactor, and workers planned to use the downtime to test whether the reactor could still be cooled if the plant lost power. During the test, however, workers violated safety protocols and power surged inside the plant. Despite attempts to shut down the reactor entirely, another power surge caused a chain reaction of explosions inside. Finally, the nuclear core itself was exposed, spewing radioactive material into the atmosphere. Anatoly Stepanovich Dyaletovet has been haunted by the memory of nuclear catastrophe. Anatoly at that time was the engineer in charge of reactor number 4 at the nuclear power plant when it exploded 34 years ago. In the eyes of the Soviet justice system, he personally bears much of the responsibility for the world's worst nuclear disaster. Soon after the catastrophe, he was found guilty of criminal negligence and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Ukraine's Chernobyl plant, often referred to as the biggest socio-economic accident in peacetime history, was blamed on operators who violated procedures and did not know the safety requirements needed. But there might be more sides to the story than the official narrative. At number 1. When Russia sold Alaska. In the world of buying and selling, diplomacy isn't really necessary. What you need is to understand the value of what you are buying. We all know Russia and the United States often clashed against each other to become the world's top superpower. But for this particular occurrence, I think the United States won. As the United States expanded westward in the early 1800s, Americans soon found themselves in competition with Russian explorers and traders. However, St. Petersburg couldn't provide aid for their military presence along the Pacific coast of North America, so they were preoccupied fighting in the Crimean War, which drastically reduced Russian interest in this region. So Russia offered to sell Alaska to the United States in 1859, believing the United States would set off the designs of Russia's greatest rival in the Pacific. They surely did not want to sell the land of the British Empire. After the U.S. Civil War that made the trade deal delayed, Secretary of State William Seward quickly took up a renewed Russian offer, and on March 30th, 1867, the Senate approved the Treaty of Purchase on April 9th. President Andrew Johnson signed the treaty on May 28th, and Alaska was formally transferred to the United States on October 18, 1867, with the worth of $7.2 million. And what might have been one of the worst trade deals in the history, Russia dumped the territory of Alaska onto the United States. Only 50 years later, Americans discovered quite a bit of gold in the last frontier, and the Klondike Gold Rush started, making the U.S. territory worth more than 100 times the original purchasing value. So what did you think? Are you fascinated by those 5 most expensive mistakes of all time? Next time you make a mistake, don't beat yourself up too much, because others have made much worse fatal flaws, and we can only hope to learn from those mistakes. We'll see you in the comment section. Be sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell. Like and share this video, and I'll see you next time on the channel.